Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Business Watch. This evening we have a very special episode for two reasons. The first is that we'll be discussing the financial industry, which is critical to our socio-economic development, and the second reason I disclose at the end of the program. And without much further ado, allow me to introduce my guest, who is no stranger to the financial industry and is the head of one of the most successful financial institutions in Trinidad and Tobago, standing steady for the past 55 years. Mr. Richard Young, Managing Director of Scotiabank and Vice President of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Young, a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Sandrine. Thank you. Pleasure.
Mr. Young, let's start by asking you, how would you describe our current financial environment in light of the current global financial scenario?
Yeah, well, I guess in broad and in summary, I would say that the Trinidad economy stands very well compared to many other countries. So that's something that we should be happy and proud of. But right now, we are faced with a bit of a challenge. We're faced with a challenge of what I refer to as low credit demand. There's not the appetite for people to want to borrow money. And that is also manifested by the fact that consumer confidence is, at its lowest, so to speak. But at the same time, on the other side, you have a situation where the banking sector is strong. I mean, whilst we had the failure of a large financial conglomerate, the banks are sound, well-regulated. And I think that is a positive in its sense. And then, of course, in the macro sense, we have a new government, a new administration. And I believe that there are a lot of high expectations, good public expectations. So I think time will emerge and it will, improve. So I'm optimistic that within a couple of months, the economy should really get going again. There was a lull, of course, prior to elections, and elections were called. And I think now that the boards have been appointed and the machinery begins to work, I think the business community generally, including the banking sector, is optimistic that we will begin to move, the country begin to move again. And
we should see some element of consumer spending, I'm sure.
Yeah, but hopefully, yeah.
In terms of the movement.
Yeah. Smart spending, I hope.
Yes,
but,
yes,
as against,
Yeah. I want to talk about the call made by the IMF recently, where they have asked for international coordination to restore global financial stability. And I would like you to put that in the context of what you just alluded to in terms of our own financial system.
Well, I guess part of the reason why we were kind of safe was because, with all due respect, the smallness of our economy.
Yes.
And I guess the call that you referred to were the power countries, the big countries, the G20s.
G20s,
and so
yes.
Wanting to stabilize the environment, and currency in itself is a major piece, because people could lose a fortune or millions and billions of dollars with a fluctuation in currency. And then you have countries that virtually, I wouldn't say play, but they invest in currency.
Yes.
I mean, you have China that has a lot of investments in the US dollars. And if they decided to move it and get out of it, it will mean a massive supply of availability of US dollar investments, and that brings down the price.
Yes.
And so I guess what they were calling on is, folks, let's work together. Let's not try to do each other in. I know there's always that constant pressure by the Americans to pressure the Chinese and saying that the Chinese currency is overvalued or undervalued, and so that the goods are cheaper, and stuff like that. And of course, the Japanese are also trying to defend the yen. We have in Europe where a couple of the European countries are, under some really severe challenges. And we saw France striking the other day.
Yes.
So the euro has weakened. So I guess that call was ready to kind of, let's do things in an orderly way, let's stabilize ourselves, because everybody would benefit.
Yes.
Because if you have one or two weak currencies in the overall, people hurt. So in that sense, I mean, how it impact Trinidad and Tobago? I mean, we are still aligned with the US dollar.
Yes.
I mean, there was a lot of speculation before about the depreciation of our currency, which I felt was really unfounded. We have strong reserves.
Yes.
But of course, dealing with the other currencies is where we'll see some fluctuation. Like the last few days, the Canadian dollar has been stronger than the US dollar.
Yes.
As it relates to TT dollars.
Yes. Yes.
And then, of course, sterling and euro continues to bob up and down.
Yes, yes, good. Financial liberalization, Mr. Young, coupled with rapid economic growth over the years, have created a more diversified and more complex financial sector. What are some of the benefits and perhaps challenges that you think have emanated from this particular scenario?
I think that one of the benefits of liberalization, globalization, call it what you want, has really been that consumers have begun to have more choice. And we, the banking sector, had to step up to the plate and offer our services in a more modern, a more technological manner. And having products that were not thought of, 10, 15 years ago. And the ability of, banking electronically and those kind of things. And then, of course, you had the consumers had choice. Because even within banking, I mean, if you could arrange your affairs, you don't necessarily have to bank with a Trinidad bank. You could bank with overseas bank. You might have the benefit of dealing with faces, and of course currency and stuff like that. But if you earn U.S. currency, you could have a credit card belonging to a non-TT bank, so to speak, and it gets accepted in Trinidad, right? So in a sense, the liberalization has given customers more choice, and it has also brought an element of competition, where the local banks really invested and stepped up to the challenge by offering, in my mind, I think first world banking, from that point of view. I mean, yes, we have all the restrictions in terms of switching currencies and availability, but generally, I think that the liberalization has certainly worked, in our favor. The challenge, the question you asked, really, Sandrine, is a question of, I think there is the need to have better education for people to understand what a financial institution is all about, how they do things.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen it all, with the recent, all this talk about CLICO, and people saying, well, I didn't know that I bought this kind of product and stuff like that. And I know that the central bank a couple of years ago started the whole financial literacy program, so I think that's an area where liberalization brings those kind of, challenges in the context of, with more choice, people have to be better informed, and they have to be more savvy.
Yes.
To understand what they're investing in and what they're getting into. So in my mind, that'll be part of the challenge we face with liberalization.
We take a short break and return shortly with Mr. Richard Young, Managing Director of Scotiabank and Vice President of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back to Business Watch on CNC3. With me this evening is Mr. Richard Young, Managing Director of Scotiabank and Vice President of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Young, welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, the Governor of the Central Bank articulated recently that our financial system is extremely liquid. There is also a view that individuals, particularly SMEs, given that, in light of that, are still experiencing some challenges in terms of obtaining finances from the banks.
Right.
How would you respond to that?
It's a question that's been put to me many, many times, and sometimes I get very passionate in my response. But let me first of all say, as a result of low credit demand, a lot of banks have built up a lot of cash reserves. I don't know the exact figure today, but we are hovering anywhere between about $2.83 billion, all told, in the banking sector available for lending. So the point I want to make on that, first of all, is that it is not that the banks do not want to lend. Okay? Having idle cash costs us money, because we have to service it. We still have to pay the interest. We can't tell the depositors, well, I can't pay you the interest because I'm not lending it.
Yes.
So we have a great desire, as we say, to offload this money in lending. I think that what has happened, because of what has happened in the world, credit has become a little more, there's more attention being paid to credit. You're not going to just lend easily. You want to make sure that what you're lending for makes sense and there's merit in it. In other words, you wouldn't lend to an initiative or business that in your mind is not going to make money,
yes,
or is not going to be profitable.
correct.
Okay? And we can't lend money just for pure social reasons. Although I noticed at the start you did say that the banks play a factor in the socio-economic world. So that I think that the usual whipping stick that we use to say, well, the banks, I can't get money, is that I think small businesses, obviously in a slowdown in the economy, will be more challenged. Okay? Because, when there's a boom, a lot of transactions or a lot of things can't be serviced by the bigger companies. So there was a mushrooming of small businesses, sole proprietors, who filled that void,
yes,
to pick up the slack.
yes,
But now that it is a slowdown, the companies themselves have come down a little bit, so they are also going back.
now, yes.
Right. So we need to understand, one, there is a lot of capacity in the country because of the slowdown. Capacity in terms of stock and selling, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Manufacturing even. So that a business wanting to enter in that kind of era, in that environment, one has to be really certain that whatever they're going to manufacture or make or service or produce or deliver is meaningful, and they will get market share, or they will have a sale.
yes.
Otherwise, we're not going to be able to, the loan wouldn't be repaid.
The loan, yes.
So my point is that SMEs need to, one, understand, first of all, they have to have a sound business plan, right? And many times we have seen the small businesses not disciplined enough to do planning. In fact, sometimes I think as a country, we don't plan enough.
I agree.
Okay? So you have to have a sound business plan. And then you need to understand, in a broad sense, what the banks are looking for.
Correct.
What they need to obviously be satisfied with, besides the character and so on of the principle, that the business fundamentals are there, that the product will be sold or the service purchased, right? And that the profit margin is going to be sufficient to service the loan, i.e. meet the interest, and the cash flows that come in would also be able to service the loan. Many times in the slowdown, a lot of our clients who are kind of dependent on one customer, who in turn had, say, problems in collecting, say, like from the state agencies,
Yes.
it just ricocheted. And then suddenly now they can't pay the supplier, which is the bank's customer, and the bank customer now can't service the loan. So, it caused people to tighten up. But at the same time, you have to make sure that the business fundamentals are there. If it's not there, if there are 5 businesses already in this market, what makes you the 6th one going to be successful?
Correct.
What differentiator are you going to have that you will take market share from the other 5?
Yes.
And it's not just a matter of putting up a business plan and say it will work. So it's a lot of those things, and in a slow economy, credit people and banks generally pay more attention to those things.
You have to
Exactly.
be more prudent in terms of
Because
your
remember, we
operations.
have a responsibility depositors.
Correct.
Right? I mean, we've seen what has happened to a large conglomerate that took money and invested in very laudable projects.
Yes.
And they say that the slowdown impacted them.
Yes.
And then they couldn't even service the depositors.
Yes. Yes.
Mr.
Young, this leads me directly and pointed to my next question, which has to do with Scotiabank's support for the SME sector, because I know recently you all have opened a small business window. Let's talk about that.
Sure. It's something that as an individual, I must tell you, I am very kind of passionate about.
I know.
Well, first of all, what we really did was resurrected, so to speak, a facility that the business development company has where they would guarantee loans. So I spoke to Albert Chow and we agreed that we'll do something. We allocated, from a treasury point of view, $200 million TT for funding small businesses. And then, of course, we ensured that we had the product suite, the suite of products catering for the small business. And of course, we also offered a low interest rate.
Yes.
Right? But as I said, at the end of the day, we have other facilities, on our website. We have a business plan writer. You could go up and get it. Helps you out to formulate a business plan and things like that. But, we have a fund allocated for small business. It's a lower interest rate. We have a suite of products, whether it's a credit card or a savings account, a checking account. Because, at the same time, whilst we lend to small businesses, they also need to put aside and save, so we have that kind of facility.
Okay.
And of course, they're checking accounts and stuff like that. And of course, they will have a credit card, or if they're selling, a credit card machine, what we call a point of sale. So it's a whole slew of products and services, and working in tandem with the BDC.
And all get towards ensuring that that particular SME is successful.
As best as we can, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Our next rounds, we're going to do some other stuff to help facilitate them even more,
Good.
Which I can't announce right now.
We take a short break. We return in a short while with Mr. Richard Young. Welcome back to Business Watch on CNC3. With me is Mr. Richard Young, Managing Director of Scotiabank and Vice President of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Young, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Young, let's shift focus a bit to Scotiabank's contribution to socioeconomic development in terms of product diversification, because I'm fully aware that the bank has a great focus in terms of customer service excellence, and to that end, you diversify, and you spoke a bit earlier before we went to break. Share with us.
Well, I think the business formula is a very simple one. Eh? I mean, competition drives it to start with.
Yes.
So in spite of this fallacy where people believe that the banking is a cartel, I mean, I tell you, I have been in 3 or 4 industries in my lifetime, all financial services. And I think banking is the most competitive, right?
Yes, it is.
We're going at each other, so to speak, whether we're trying to get other customers or we're trying to launch a new product. And some of the things that we have done in the last little while is that, one, we introduced internet banking. We were the first bank to offer that. And that's the convenience. Now, not many people at the time were connected. And then, of course, we then introduced something called paperless banking, so that when you go into a Scotiabank, you don't have to fill out a deposit slip or withdrawal slip. You use your bank card, yes, and you do all your pinning, and the transaction is done. You get a little slip, everything. I mean, from an efficiency point of view, it helps us too for processing. We recently introduced mobile banking, yes, where people could use a smartphone, and do their banking. And then we had products, for youth, be youth.
Yes.
So it's a series of different products that we offer. I mean, on the commercial side, we have the facility where letters of credit can be prepared electronically. You have cash management systems using technology so that a company can look at all its bank accounts. We have a client that have their customers deposit monies to their account in all different branches throughout the country. And at a certain point in time, electronically, they know how much is due to them, and they do what we call a sweep. And they just take the money out of their account, put it back in a central account. So there are a lot of technological changes and advancements that has come into banking, and we all try to be the first to launch it. So in that broad sense, competition and liberalization has driven us to be more competitive and launching all these different products.
And I think, Mr. Young, it's laudable, and let me congratulate you and your team early in terms of that, because whilst there's a slowing in the economy in terms of consumer lending and borrowing, you still have that diversification taking place in terms of customer-friendly products on the other side of the coin.
Yeah, well, we try.
Yes,
try. I mean,
yes.
like, for example, one of the things that we've introduced is that if you took out a mortgage with us for 15 years, and you were good in your servicing it, at the end of the mortgage, over 20 years, we will give you back, rebate you, either 15% of the interest that you paid, or 20% if it's a 20-year mortgage. So can you imagine, after paying it,
yes,
you get this lump sum at the end. So it's all those kind of different things where I think the consumer benefits.
Yes, excellent.
Internet banking, you don't have to go in the traffic.
Convenience.
Exactly. Even the ATM is a very convenient thing. Plastics.
Yes.
From a safety point of view, you don't have to walk around with cash.
Yeah.
And things like that. So that's what we have certainly done, and of course, it's competitive.
And you continue.
Sure, for sure.
In your review of the bank's performance in 2009, I noted that you stated that the bank's 5 core values have steadfastly enabled the bank to steer the course through turbulent times?
Yes. Well, that's a kind of a trade secret, but I don't mind kind of sharing it with you.
Peripherally.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I talked to other CEOs about it. I mean, for the last 5 years, I spend about 5 or 6 months of my year meeting my people. I do town halls. So the benefit of that is that you connect better with your people. You hear the issues firsthand, and you deal with them. You know, I tell them I can't fix everything. I call them town halls. We have town halls, right? Very structured.
Okay.
But it brings your people, you get them better aligned. Because I spend the first hour listening to them, and then I preach to them in the second hour. So we all leave understanding each other. And you know, it's an overused cliche, but people are your biggest asset. So if you have aligned people, right, and motivated and engaged people, staff, it is 75% of the battle is won.
Yes.
Because they all know what they have to do, and they all committed, because we are very much group. So those 5 core values you talk about is the underpinning of how we do business. And then we have these 4 words: one team, one goal. So we operate, you know, as one unit, regardless of whether you're in commercial banking or retail banking or capital market. So the foundation of people is what certainly has contributed to the success of the bank. Now, at the higher level, I think we're very strong in governance. We have a board of directors of excellent people. They provide first-class oversight to make sure that Young is behaving himself. And also we have a major shareholder. Yes. That in itself, it also brings another, if you want to call it, layer of accountability.
Yes.
Right? So whilst I may be the MD, I mean, you know, there are major decisions that I don't make on my own. Yes. Right? So it's a collaboration. Yes. Right? So there's that. Then, of course, I mentioned just now, we've always had a reputation of being very prudent risk managers. You know, we don't do a deal for doing its sake. It got to make sense, right? So our risk management is also strong. I mean, prudence and conservatism is a kind of a culture within the bank. It's not one of our core values, but it is in a sense. So you have all those things, people, how you do things, you do it right, you do it, you know. I always tell people, you know, we really are, you know, we're there for the long haul. Good. Right? And to me, that is what it is all about. And you know, we pride ourselves. We've been champion employer of the year in a large category a couple of times. Yes. So it talks it, you know. Yes. So to me, that's what has contributed to it.
Excellent. Yeah. Mr. Young, 60 seconds to wrap up. Some closing thoughts in terms of where you would like to see, from where you sit as VP of the Bankers Association, as well as head of Scotiabank, MD of Scotiabank. Where would you like to see the financial sector leading?
I think we need to improve in how we do things. We need to be more efficient. I think as an industry, we're not well appreciated. And that may be our doings in not talking more about the things we do. People don't really appreciate until it happens the good of a solid, profitable banking system. Right? That if we were not profitable, you know, you can imagine a kind of turmoil, as we've seen recently again, where depositors now know they can't get back their money. Yes. We take those things for granted. Yes. So I think that has been a jolt in the financial sector. So we have to work together to solidify that. I think we have to make sure our constituents or stakeholders are better informed, they understand how we do things, and don't feel that the bank is just exploiting them. Yes. You know, and one of the things too, we you know, it's taken for granted, but people forget that the bank has facilitated many people in achieving their dreams. Yes. You know, the acquisition of a home or car, you know, or business initiative. The banks are there for you. Yeah.
And I think people are more informed.
Of course, with the recent thing, they're more attentive now that, you know, is this institution a solid one, etc., etc. Yes.
Mr. Young, it was indeed a pleasure having you on Business Watch this evening. I want to thank you sincerely for taking the time off to be here with us. And I'd like to wish you and your leadership team all the best in terms of moving the bank and contributing to our socio-economic development in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandrine. Take care.
Yeah. There you have it, viewers. Mr. Richard Young, Managing Director of Scotiabank and the Vice President of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, enlightening us on the current state of the financial industry in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as sharing with us some important achievements of Scotiabank and plans ahead to further contribute towards the development of the industry. I did indicate at the beginning of the program that I'd share with you the second reason why this evening's program is special. Well, it's because we're at the end of our first season of Business Watch. But it does not stop there. Stay tuned to CNC3 over the coming weeks when the next chapter of Business Watch is unveiled, as we continue to keep the concept of business development at the national forefront, particularly in light of the government's thrust to diversify the economy. Much thanks and appreciation to our viewers and my fans for your positive feedback and support. Bye for now and see you soon.